And we are now recording. Good afternoon, everyone. We are really excited to have you here today. I hope you all had a great break, that you were able to get some rest and maybe get a little recharged. We have Bobby Mikel. He's our creative media designer with Online at JSU, and he is going to talk today about recording video for in education. So, Bobby, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Chris. So, just so you guys kind of know where this is coming from, this tips for recording video for education. The idea behind this is to maybe flush out any misconceptions that any of you may had about video. Maybe you want to use video, but you're not sure where to start, or maybe you're just self-conscious, like some of us can all be, and be like, well, I don't really like how I look, or I don't like how I sound, so I don't want to do video. Or maybe you think it's too hard or technical, or maybe you're on the other end and you say, well, I've been using video, I just want some tips on how to make things better. So the idea behind this presentation is we're trying to cover both of those topics. Probably won't be a very extensive, very long presentation, but there will be time at the end where you guys can ask me questions, and we'll do the best we can to try to meet any needs and try to answer any questions that you guys may have. So we'll just go ahead, jump right in. Tips for recording for education. Um, a little bit about my background. I've been doing production work for years, TV production, and I realize this is a completely different space. So don't go into it with the mindset of you've got to understand all of this super complex technical stuff. You really don't. There's a lot of things that are really simplified, especially now in our world of COVID. Unfortunately, they've made a lot of things now that are pretty easy for basically anybody to pick up, and those are some of the things that we're going to look at. First of all, why would we even want to use video? Um, Sometimes people want to use video just because they kind of think it's cool, and they just want to throw video in just because. Um, but maybe we need to ask ourselves a question: what's the purpose behind it? Does does my content warrant a video? We need to think about video as just another means of communicating your point, whatever that is. It's just another form of communication. And is video going to be the most effective way of doing that? Um, if that is you, if you fall in line with that, if your answer is yes to any of those things and say, yeah, there is a purpose, there is a point, I don't just want to do video for the sake of video. Well, here's some reasons, some things to consider why you might want to use it. And this is by no means an exhaustive list. This is just kind of some things to think of on why we would want to use some video in courses. Maybe it's just to enhance the course content. Maybe it's to supplement what they're already looking at, for the students already looking at in the textbook or in PowerPoints or anything that you've created, any other materials. Is it to enhance the course content? Sometimes things are better shown than read about, especially in a lot of lab-based classes. It can be really difficult to try to explain things. And I'm sure many of you know what I'm talking about when last year we were all thrown online immediately, and you had to scramble and figure out a way to communicate points that you typically do in person, and you had to do it in a different medium. So maybe that falls in your category. Some things are better shown than read about. Um, or maybe you need visuals that reinforce the material. Maybe the material already makes sense, but it will become more concrete when they see it along with reading about it. It kind of solidifies the concepts and things that you're working with your students in. Or perhaps you want to use video to provide a different perspective. Maybe this is outside of the view that you're showing. Maybe you want to present something from a YouTube video or things like that. And if that's the case, that's completely okay. All video doesn't have to be self-created. We don't have to think about it in a way of, well, I need to do custom and original everything. If you can, that's great. That's perfect. If you can't, um, then maybe you can find something that's out there like Khan Academy or YouTube or something. But the only thing I would make sure is if you're looking at a video that's kind of lengthy, and I'll say kind of lengthy even if it's in the 5 to 7 minute range, and we'll talk about length in a moment, make sure that you watch the video all the way through start to finish before you expect your students to do that. Because it may end up showing something a little different than what you expected. I've looked at videos for some of the classes that I've taught and thought that, well, this first minute or two was great, and then it kept going and it just got way deeper than what I wanted the students to get into, or maybe it was saying things that were different than what would be the best way of teaching or best method of teaching them on a specific topic. So just make sure that you vet those videos thoroughly if you're looking at doing a video that you didn't create from the ground up. So if you decide, yeah, I want to do video, there's a purpose behind it, I've got a solid reason, there's still some things that we need to consider before we just jump in to say, okay, I've got a purpose and I want to do it. One of the big things to consider is plan ahead. And I realize it's only 2 words, but this cannot be overstated, is plan everything out, especially when you're dealing with video and technology. Look, we all know that things happen. Things break down. Things don't work quite the way they're supposed to. I keep seeing my hand disappearing. That's one of the things. See, things don't work exactly the way that we think they're going to every time. Well, the best way that we can try to mitigate that is to plan ahead. Even for this presentation, I had Stephanie assist me, and we did a Teams meeting one-on-one just to make sure that things looked the way I wanted them to look on your end, and that it looked fine for me, and I would be able to follow along. If you're worried about the way that you think or the way that you talk or the way you sound or look, plan it, record it out. If you need to write things down, write it out. Whatever you need to do to try to make your video presentation go as smoothly as you can. And along with the writing, with the planning part, communication is key. As I said a moment ago, video is just another form of communication. That's all we're doing. We don't need to overcomplicate it, don't need to overthink it any more than that. It's just another way of communicating a point. Well, your communication is key. Let's say that you're worried about how you're going to speak and you might stumble or stammer or something like that. So you write it out. And if that's what you have to do, that's totally fine. But you need to make sure that your communication is conversational. Because I don't know about you guys, but personally, I don't like being read to. I don't like when I'm in a conference or even at church or anything like that, and somebody's just reading line by line by line. I check out. And if you're like that, most of your students will probably check out too, if it just sounds like you're reading. So communication, being conversational, is very important, especially in video. I'm sure you guys deal with it all the time and seeing students in face-to-face, and you can tell when they're engaged and when they're not. Well, it's a whole lot easier to disengage, to mentally check out, if you're not in the same room with them. So communication, it becomes even more crucial, and the conversational tone in the way that you present yourself becomes even more crucial when we're thinking about video. Some helpful tips and things beyond that. Once we've got our why and we've got our plan, what are some things that we do need to think about to help us have a successful execution of our video? Well, one is video and audio quality are important. Sometimes, for whatever reason, one or the other, people want to put more weight, more emphasis in one or the other, in video or audio. It doesn't work that way. You need to be sure that the quality is of a standard for both of them, because if one of them is bad, then it detracts from the conversation. It detracts from the topic that you're trying to communicate. Because at the end of the day, if we aren't effective communicators, then we've failed our job no matter what method of communication we choose. So video and audio quality are important. In addition to that, lighting is important. Um, maybe you're in a dark office or something. Think about supplemental lighting. I'm going to demonstrate just for a moment and show you. See, I'm actually using a light right now. I'm in a typical office. I've got a fluorescent overhead, but you see how much of a difference it made when I turned the light off versus with the light back on. Uh, it just makes things pop a little bit better, makes the quality look a little better, a little more crisp. So that's something else to consider about lighting. The next thing is a quiet location to record. Uh, don't try to record videos going down the road in a car. Don't try it if you've got a noisy air conditioner, and you guys may even hear mine. Um, a quick story, since we're all in the got sent home world. Just a few months ago, I was in a meeting, in a virtual meeting, with a local school system where I was participating as a tech advisor because of what the role and things I do here. I was on my surface in my living room and participated in the meeting, and my wife was on the call as well because she's a high school educator. She called me immediately as soon as it was over and said, you made some really good points, but our fan sure is loud. I didn't think about the fact that there was a ceiling fan above me that evidently was much louder than what I had realized before I jumped on this call with audio. So sometimes, even like the air conditioner that's over my head, sometimes we think about, or we don't think about, the noises that we just overlook if we're in a live room. It's really hard to overlook them when it's coming across in video. So think about a quiet location, places that you can go to record and not have external distractions. Next thing is keep your videos short. If you've got long lecture segments, which we don't really recommend on putting large groups of or large chunks of lecture out, but if you do what's called chunking and keep it in the 5 to 10 minute range, really. Um, Going back to your own attention span. If you guys are watching a seminar or you guys are watching somebody and you're not engaged, then you check out. Typically, we can start to disengage, especially with a video that we don't have live interaction on the other side, when it gets beyond that 5 to 10 minute range. And 10 minutes may even be a little generous. It may even need to be more in the 5 to 7 minute range. Think about that. Think about your own attention span before you create this video that you just think is amazing and then ask students to watch what may be a 20, 30 or longer minute video. Really difficult to try to get your point across because the students will tend to check out. The next thing is, and I reiterate it because it is important, try to be conversational in tone. Um, don't try to just read. Don't try to just drone on, because again, if you guys don't receive from that yourselves from other presenters, you can't justify and expect your students to receive from it as well, because most likely what will happen, they just don't watch the video and they just do the assessment and they take whatever they get, and then all the work that you spent trying to do something kind of falls by the wayside because it wasn't watched or it wasn't taken in, the point wasn't communicated. So try to be conversational, and when I say conversational, we don't have to speak the same vernacular that our students do, but we can try to use different tones in our voice and try to sound like we're talking to a friend or a colleague, if you will, as opposed to just a drone on. Because again, if they're checking out in a lecture, it's even more it's even easier to check out when you're looking at a video and you're not in a live room with someone. So we've covered why we should do a video. We've covered things that we should consider before we do a video. We just went over some different tips and things that we can think of. Now let's look at some of the more granular specifics and some of the tools that we can utilize to help us pull all of this off, to help this become more effective. First thing is a good webcam. Not all webcams are created equal. Some will look grainy, some are lower resolution, and you usually get what you pay for. the webcam needs to be at least HD. If you are buying it out of your personal funds, double check, make sure that that it has good ratings, good reviews. Another thing to consider, and well, before I jump off the other tech tool, you can even use your phone. And we'll talk about that. We've actually got a session that Stephanie and I are putting on tomorrow where we'll mention a little bit about how to use your phone and in video, and how we can take a video that we record on our phone and put in Kaltura or things like that. So your phone is an option. It just requires a little bit more steps to jump through in order to get it where you need to be so your students can watch it. So a good webcam. Also, extra lighting. I just showed you my light that I turned off a minute ago, and you guys can see the difference in what just a little light. And there's nothing extravagant. Actually, the light that I'm using is the same one that you guys see in the picture on the PowerPoint. It's the exact same light. It's just a USB powered light. Plug it right into your USB port. It's got an on-off switch. You can adjust brightness, things like that. Extra lighting will make things pop a little bit better. A document camera or additional camera. Now you may think, why would I need a document camera or two cameras? Well, maybe you need a document because you might have something that's written or printed, and for whatever reason you can't get it into a digital form. So you can use the kind of an old school way of thinking is do a document camera, or just think of it as an additional camera. Maybe the video like what I've got right now doesn't work for you. Maybe you would need a secondary camera over to the side, or that's a camera that's a document camera that's actually pictured in that PowerPoint. Maybe there's something that you would need to demonstrate. You could hold your hands under it and demonstrate, or hold an object under it and demonstrate. So think about an additional camera if you need. A USB microphone. Now, I'm currently not using one. We do have those available. We've got a vodcasting room that's right down the hall from me. And with that, it has a much warmer sound. It doesn't sound like you're talking out into a bucket or sound like you're in a large room. It's almost radio type sound. So you may want to consider that, especially if you're in a noisy environment. Because if you're in a real noisy environment, a USB mic that's right up on your face would sound a whole lot better than like the ceiling fan was in the example I used earlier. And those are relatively cheap. They're easy to install. You just plug it in the USB port and you can set it up in whatever software you use. And with that, some other tech tools that we'll look at just a few software items. Teams. So it's great. We've got our video, we've got our tips, we've got our tools and all these things, but how do we get a way for our students to look at it? Well, one of the things is Teams, and I'm sure some of you guys are utilizing that already. You can record things in Teams. It doesn't just have to be live. Just like Chris did, he recorded this and then it will be available on his stream since he recorded it. Then you can share that with whomever. You can share it with your students. You could share it through Canvas, however you want to do that. Teams can also do screen share, where you could do some screen share type things, where if you were teaching a technology style class or you're teaching an app or something that you want your students to learn, and you can click here and they can see all these things in Teams. Another version or another tool that does a similar thing is Screencast-O-Matic. This is a free software, and to my knowledge, you guys can download it, and you don't have to have the admin access or the admin privileges through our IT department if you're using a school computer. But Screencast-O-Matic will do some of these same things. It's a little more simplified, which can be good and bad, but it's fairly easy to use, fairly easy to get a hold of. We've all trained people here to use it. We all use it ourselves. The biggest limitation of Screencast-O-Matic is the free version limits you to 15 minutes. But if you're going by those rules that we just looked at a little while ago, you're not going to be doing videos that are over that length of time anyway. And last tool I want to talk about is Kaltura. You guys can do all this same stuff in Kaltura, which you can find through our LMS, through Canvas. You can do screen recordings. You can do just one-on-one recordings kind of with your webcam like we're doing right now. You can do document shares and things. And it's already integrated into the LMS, so it's easier to share with your students. Before I get done talking, before we open it up for questions here in just a moment, I want to let you guys know that these tools that we talked about, all this hardware, the lighting, the cameras, not the microphones, but lighting, cameras, document cams, things like that. Basically everything you see in that picture, we have that available now at online at JSU. A limited number of these kits are available. And if you guys are interested in using them to learn more about your, or to increase the quality of your online classes or increased video, yeah, Chris just put the link in the chat. So you guys can look on that. There's a form there that you can fill out if you want to check out any of these items. If you just want to know more about it, we can schedule a time that that we can work through and go over the specific things. If you're just concerned of how you would actually do these things, maybe you want to know a little more in depth. But that's about it. If you guys are interested, here's some references. All of this stuff, all the things I pulled are already on our own website. There's the links to it. If you guys would like, I can share the PowerPoint with you as well. That's all I had at this point. If you guys have any questions, I would be more than happy to answer them to the best of my ability. Guest speakers. Are you referring that? See, with video, every question poses another question. Are you referring to a guest speaker within your class, like they come and they're a live speaker, or are you referring to like what we're doing now?
Yes, Bobby. So I actually have both. I feel pretty comfortable if we're doing a Teams session. It's easy to record that. That's great. But a lot of times in my class, I have guest speakers come in, and I always try to record them to use for future classes or if somebody missed a lecture. And recently I've been using, sadly, my Surface to get the video. It's not the best quality and the audio is not the best. That's the biggest, I think, comment, constructive feedback I get from students is that the audio is not great, even though I'm as close to them as possible, while still trying to get them in the frame. And I was just wondering if you have any suggestions moving forward. We're going to be moving into the new Mural Hall, and I know we'll have some new technology, but I didn't know if there were any better uh, ideas or philosophies about doing that.
If it were me, probably how I would handle it is that I would use my phone, because you're right, the Surface camera quality is not the greatest. The audio for the Surface is not the greatest. Um, Usually the phone, especially, I mean, I'm an iPhone person, but usually any of your current version smartphones do a pretty good job, especially on the video side.
Okay.
The audio, you would just kind of have to do kind of what you're doing with the Surface and get it as close as you can to them. And see, with that,
Okay.
what I would recommend doing is I would have a tripod with a phone holder.
Yes, sir. I was thinking
Uh,
about that. Okay, good.
yeah, and I've got a phone holder, something like
Okay.
that you can attach to a
Yeah.
tripod. And
Okay.
then what you can do is email the video to yourself. If you wanted to go to Kaltura, there's a whole workflow for that, and I can share that
Okay.
with you as well if you need.
Sure. Thank you.
hmm Yeah, and like Chris said, yeah, the phone clips, the tripods, things like that. We can check those out to you. We've got, like I said, we have a limited number, but that's what it's there for. It's for you guys to use. See, we got a couple more people typing.
Yeah, it looks like we've got some people typing. Welcome, Amy.
Yeah, looking at the Screencast-O-Matic comment, correct auto-generated captions. Okay. Auto-generated captions on now I've not used Screencast-O-Matic's auto-generated captions, so I can't speak directly to that. You can do auto captions in Kaltura, and that's actually one of the things that we're going to talk about tomorrow is captioning in Kaltura. I will say that in my experience, auto caption on virtually anything is tough. YouTube does a pretty good job, but you still have to correct a lot of punctuation. And when I've done YouTube videos and do the captions, it wants to put it all as one run-on sentence. But Kaltura does a pretty decent job, especially with the end of sentence things. But you still need to go in and correct it. And while we're here, speaking about captioning, to make any of your stuff accessible, we recommend using captions. And no matter what auto caption you're using, you always need to go back and double check it. We've used captions in one of the jobs I had before where we paid for a professional captionist, and we still had to go back and correct it and make sure that things were right. So that has to become part of your workflow, is to correct captions. Yeah, and you're talking about captions created through Screencast-O-Matic, Joanne? Okay. Yeah, yeah, like Chris said, we can definitely look at that. If not, Kaltura may be an option for you as well. And like I said, tomorrow we're going to go over the caption workflow for Kaltura if Screencast-O-Matic isn't working out.
I also want to chime in on that. You could also do like a web captioner where you get a transcript that you can load up into some services. Stream allows you to do that. I don't know if Screencast-O-Matic does. I haven't played with that, but you could also make a transcript to accompany your video as well if the captioning is not coming out as well.
You can. YouTube will do that. You can upload a RTF file to YouTube or a TXT file to YouTube and do the same thing for if you're using YouTube for dissemination. But yeah, that's a very good point.
Does anyone else have any questions? Those are really good questions so far. I saw a couple other people typing, and Stephanie's typing something. There you go. That's good.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that tool, but like Stephanie said, the voice correct and obtain, that's got to be in your workflow for captioning is to correct. You always got to double check it, even a live captionist like Chris had put up in the chat. You always got to go back and check because you may say something that they didn't understand what you said and they took a shot at it and they did the best that they could, and it may or may not be right sometimes. Well, Chris, that is all I had unless other people had any questions.
Okay. Does anyone else have any more questions for Bobby or any of us? Okay, well, if not, thank you for being here, and we hope you were able to get a couple of good nuggets of information out of this session. Thank you, Bobby, for presenting today. And Bobby and Stephanie will also be, like Bobby said, they'll be doing another a companion presentation tomorrow about Kaltura. So if you can make it tomorrow, we look forward to seeing you. And everyone have a great afternoon.
Yeah. Thank you, guys.